Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 360 experience with myself, Thomas Mabaso. So, guys, it seems like everybody, and I mean everybody, is sick and tired of our inept and incompetent president, Cyril Ramaphosa. I'm saying this because there's a video clip that I just saw on the internet. This is an interview that was conducted by Alec Hawk on Biz News. He was having a conversation with Rob Hersov, and they were talking about Cyril Ramaphosa, about his economic plan, about how Ramaphosa needs to trim down the government so that he can save money, and the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa knows nothing about business. These are not my words. These are words of Rob Hersov. And guys, speaking about business, you remember how the ANC sold Cyril Ramaphosa to the people of this country, telling the people of this country that Cyril Ramaphosa is a businessman and he is going to run this country like business. Cyril Ramaphosa is going to inspire businesses to come into the country so that people can find jobs. But everything turned out to be the opposite. So on this interview, Rob Hersov totally takes down Cyril Ramaphosa. To say this was a total annihilation is an understatement. So guys, I want you to watch this video, and after watching this video, please tell me what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button, and the most important part is subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Enjoy the video.
Okay, so let's move away from Bitcoin onto the other issue that you've been talking a lot about, to become South Africa's Elon Musk, not in the sense of starting your own space company, but in going into government and helping to deregulate or the issues that that South Africa is facing. Because my goodness, before we get there, there was an announcement this week of some of Ramaphosa's economic team, 19 members, no Rob Hersov, no, in fact, no businessman on that. And Cyril's again relying on academics and bureaucrats and some pretty left-wing thinkers to pull South Africa out of the malaise that it's in. You got to wonder about that story of what's the definition of insanity.
Exactly. I mean, you make the point absolutely. It's not one business person. There are 19 members. How do you get anything done with 19 policy wonks sitting around the table who are all professorial with master's degrees who've never actually created any wealth in their lives? And, you know, you have hardcore lefties on there, like London-based leftist heroine Mariana Mazzucato, you know, working with people or trying to work with people who have a sensible view of how to create economic growth and sensible policy. They're just going to disagree and go all over the place and come up with something that's absolutely a waste of time, useless, and no one's going to read it. But that's what Cyril does. You know, Cyril's not a businessman. You know, his businesses that he owns have been handouts to him. You know, he was the BEE darling. Everyone backed him. He talked a good game. He's never actually looked at income, cost, and profitability and said, we need to cut these costs. We need to be more productive. We need to be more efficient. He's had other people do that for him. So he's just a jolly Santa Claus who hands out gifts to everyone. And all he's done here is hand out, and I'm wondering how much he's paying each of these 19. He's handing out gifts to all of them to, like, kiss for you, a thank you for you. They're going to get nothing done. It's the most pointless waste of time ever. And I remember, and I can't remember who was on, there were 3 people that Cyril appointed 4 or 5 years ago. Jacques-Marie was one of them, and he I rate very highly, but there were 3 other people supposed to evangelize South Africa for foreign direct investment. Well, what happened to that? Bet you that went nowhere. So all Cyril's doing, as with the cabinet, is saying, oh, look, let's have a few more ministers and thank this person and give money to this person. You know, he's Father Christmas. He's absolutely useless, spineless and useless. And this is exactly what's come out in this, you know, policy wonk, you know, 19-person, go nowhere, cost the country money, bunch of Marxists mixed in with maybe some sensible professors. It's a complete and utter waste of time. Reflected in our cabinet. I mean, our cabinet is 32 ministers. What a joke. And 43 deputy ministers. We have 75 ministers. Javier Milei in Argentina went from 18 down to 8. Just cut the ministries. and added one more, a minister of deregulation. And that's the job we need in South Africa. We need an axe man or an axe woman and a minister of cutting cost, cutting waste, cutting bureaucracy and deregulation urgently, because there's so much fat and waste and corruption at the top that needs to be cut.
So I've put on screen the Free Market Foundation's image that they put together and one that you sent me. So it's clearly in line with the way that you are thinking. These are the ministries that should be retained, in your opinion. Just explain this to us, if you would.
So these are the only ministries that matter. They're the big ones. They're the ones where we need a minister, we need a budget, we need focus, and we need sensible spending. You know, there is a presidency. That's how we're set up, including, if we have to have him, Paul Mashatile or someone better, hopefully soon. Minister of Finance, you know, Enoch, terrific, good guy. I rate him highly. And by the way, yesterday I had a conversation with David Masondo. What an impressive human being. I mean, Enoch and David, we've got some very good people there. Defense, you have to, you know, no matter how along the spectrum of libertarianism you are and small government, you do need defense. But under defense, you can obviously handle, you know, not just protecting against attack, invasion, and threats, but also border control. That should be there. On international relations, absolutely, you need it. Justice we have to have, and we're going to get back to our disastrous Cyril decision on Tembi Simelane. We'll get to that in a second. Home affairs, you'd incorporate police, correctional services in there. Cooperative government, yes. Public service, yes. Public works and social development. But look at under public works and social development. You know, you take these other ministries and just merge them underneath those. So in the end, you have a president that knows what he or she is doing, is focused, and only have 9 people reporting to him or her. You have 10, 11 people around the table. That's how you get things done. Whenever I see a business that has 25 people on the board, you know it's just a waste of time. It's not going to happen. You need excellent people in these positions and go from there. And you'll save billions.
Executive committee of 9 people. It's still a bit big, but if you're running a country, an exco of 9 rather than an exco of over 30. So these are the guys that will be scrapped, consolidated, devolved. Now, we do have people who are not watching, so we need to also spell it out. They're just listening to this as a podcast. Please do that for us. Who would you, and who, well, the Free Market Foundation are proposing it, and you clearly go along with it on the ministries that would be scrapped.
So, you know, when I was studying what Elon and Ramaswamy are planning to do on Doge, you know, and then study what Javier Milei is doing in Argentina, and there are other countries also trying to tackle waste, corruption, bureaucracy, inefficiency. You know, I made a few calls, and one of the first calls is to David Ansara of this Free Market Foundation. And I said, look, I'm pulling together a small group, small young team of smart people. And what I'm going to do is help create a narrative, create momentum on cutting waste, bureaucracy, and over-regulation from the South African blob, the South African swamp. And I'm not surprised. David had already begun the work. He was already down the line, and he sent me these charts. So I didn't ask his permission. I'm sure he's fine me showing it. But let's talk about which ministries you can scrap. You know, you've got these people sitting around the table. They've got budgets. In other words, they've got money that they need to spend and they want to spend. And that's ridiculous. You shouldn't have money that you need and want to spend. You should actually say, what does the country need? What are the public goods that the country needs? Roads, we need defense, you know, justice system, we need, you know, health, we need education. Right. Let's work out what's called a zero-based budget. Instead of looking at what we spent the last fiscal cycle and then saying, you need a bit less, you need a bit more, and going from there, every time round, we should do a zero-based budget. We should start from zero. Assume that we have the 1,900 billion, which is the number, 1,900 billion rand. What do we spend it on? What are the really important things that the country needs? Well, firstly, if you take the 1,900 billion rand, you've got to spend almost 400 billion on debt service. This is money the government's borrowed. So of that budget that you want to spend on things for South Africans in South Africa, you've actually got to give away 400 billion of that to pay debt. Okay? Because you've got a debt that's ballooning. And the grants that Cyril's been throwing out and promising everybody is another almost 400 billion. So you've got almost 800 billion of the 1,900 billion that just gone on day one. Okay? You have about 1,000, let's call it 200 billion left. And of that, 500 billion goes to health and education. And when it comes to health and education, people go, oh, you can't touch that. Well, you can, because a lot of it's being wasted. So you need someone that can go in there and see what's being wasted, get rid of tenderpreneurs, get rid of middlemen, reduce that amount. But if you take the, let's call it 800 billion of debt service grants and the 500 billion in health and education, you've only got 700 billion rand left to spend in everything else. So you know that the right way to do it is start from zero and say, okay, we have to pay debt, but let's find a way to reduce debt. Grants, okay, let's make them more efficient. I'm sure there are middlemen making a fortune there. And then at least try and have a much larger budget that we can produce and invest on things that really matter for South Africans. You know, infrastructure, roads, hospitals, things like that, things that make a difference. South Africa's got so much waste, so much fat, so much bureaucracy, and so many people earning money between the budget and the recipients that it's a joke. So I would scrap all of these ministries. Why do we need a ministry for women? I mean, what is their budget and what do they use it for? Ridiculous. I thought men and women are treated equally. Damn well ought to be. And you don't need a ministry for women. You know, do we really need a ministry of sports, arts, and culture? No. Sorry, Gayton. I mean, actually, you've done a hell of a good job, Gayton, but you should be in a much bigger, tougher job. Trade, industry, and competition, that can fall under another ministry. And on the consolidation, we take ministries, push them together, devolve the ministries that are pointed out on the slide and the ministries that just should fall under other ministries. And you make it a much more efficient, focused government, a much more efficient, focused South Africa. We would save hundreds and hundreds of billions of rand. And it's very easy to do, but Cyril's not the right guy to do it. He's too spineless. He's too weak. He just wants to have more ministers and more committees and hand out presents and terrible.